Takahashi Kenshi is one of the more unfortunate characters in all of Mortal Kombat. He got no wins in MKX, he was a non-canon corpse in MK11, his son got revamped as his cousin in M1K, and at every turn he loses his eyesight. But how does this happen? Like the death of Scorpion's family or the origin of Jax's arms, each version makes changes to the origin, and there's a neat little progression from bad to very bad to
oh man, oh god, oh man.
But before we go back to the beginning and see if we can untangle this yarn ball of a cannon, welcome to Cannonball, we need to discuss the topic of visual clarity. So you see me in this Kenshi adjacent cosplay and you see the problem, right? Well, I can't, but you can.
Oh, I get it, 'cause I'm blind.
Yes, you are. My video quality has historically not always been the best. Sometimes it is downright horrendous, I have to admit. But you compare this to this, and you can see why OBSBot is the way to go. OBSBot has kindly sent me two of their latest products, the Tiny SE and the Meat SE, as part of a sponsorship for this video. And honestly, I think these two will be absolute game changers for my videos. Especially over Discord, my word. I also hope I've got these right because I can't see which is which. The Tiny SE offers 1080p capture at 100 FPS. Combine that with its f1.8 aperture and advanced low light performance, and you're in for some very clear, noise-free footage, even in low light environments. Now this one is a real treat because of the motion tracking offered by its 2-axis gimbal. Between body part tracking, hand tracking, and zone tracking, you have a lot of options for more dynamic framing for your streams, videos, or presentations if you're in that line of work. And this can all be controlled either through OBSBot's hands-free Gesture Control 2.0 system or the OBSBot Center app, giving you a lot of freedom with your setup. And it's fully compatible with OBS, Zoom, and Twitch, making it a very easy, versatile product for a wide variety of purposes. The Tiny SE is available for $99 in the US and $129 internationally. Now, if I were to be making a green screen video with this kind of setup, it may cause some... yeah. So that's where the Meat SE comes in for your more static camera setups. Once again, we have 1080p at 100 FPS or 150 FPS at 720p if you prioritize frame rate. It's basically got a built-in performance mode, so you hardcore PC players are gonna love it. It also offers advanced low-light performance like the Tiny SE, so you're still good to go on that front too. And while the range of motion is obviously more limited than the Tiny SE, you do still have some flexibility with left and right through, once again, the very simple gesture controls, which also help with autofocus, which is another benefit that this camera has. And you can switch between landscape, portrait, and group modes to better frame even more kinds of video content and discussions. And if you're something of an aesthetics person, not only is this bad boy small and compact, but it also comes in 3 very nice colour options. Aurora Green, Cloud White, and the Space Grey I've been using. And all this for just $69 in the US and $79 internationally. So if you're looking to elevate your conference calls, video chats, YouTube videos or streams, check out the Tiny SE and the Meat SE. The links are down in the description if you want to learn more. Thank you OBSBot for sponsoring this video, and now let's talk about someone who cannot appreciate these fine products.
Even for you, that was low.
Yeah, I know it's not my best segue, shut up. Kenshi's blindness has always been the core premise of his character. Supposedly known in Deadly Alliance's game files as Blind, screenshots from around March 2002 had him under the name Blind Gi, and he was known as Blind Kenshi by E3 in May, possibly suggesting that Kenshi wasn't his real name originally, with Blind Kenshi simply conveying that he's a blind Japanese swordsman. In fact, given his second costume is a gi, and that this Japanese swordsman had a straight sword even by E3, I suspect he was originally a blind martial artist with Blind Gi as his Cage Jr.-esque codename before he was given a proper name, and just any old weapon because everyone had one, and then given a katana that basically has the same moveset as Scorpion's late in development. It certainly explains why his kata doesn't focus on his sword while that was an option for them. Kenshi's original origin, as established in Deadly Alliance, has him as a prideful warrior seeking worthy foes across Asia in a bid to be the best. Shang Tsung, under the alias of Song, is aware of Kenshi's descent from a lineage of warrior kings from between Europe and China. Seeking their souls, he informs Kenshi of a sword at their tomb, the House of Pakara, which Kenshi arrogantly covets. Shang has him open the altar, secretly a well of souls. The act of either opening or peering into the well is a great sacrilege, which leaves Kenshi blinded, his eyes now a blank white. Shang consumes the souls and leaves him for dead, but the sword guides him out of the tomb and he sets out for revenge. So, in summary,
Your arrogance blinds you.
it reminds me of this one ending from Fatal Frame 2 where Mio looks into a pit leading to the underworld and gets blinded as a result. Maybe there's some Japanese folklore that inspired both? In the NetherRealm timeline, as established in MK9 and X, this backstory remains mostly intact. His ancestry is never explained, with only Japanese iconography being given to him, and the sword is now named Sento. The blinding now occurs once Kenshi takes the sword and his ancestors' souls emerge, while the original had him blinded the second he opened the well. In his character vignette, he now has blood pouring out of his eye sockets which are shrouded in shadow, suggesting he lost his eyes entirely this time, possibly plucked out by his ancestors. But MKX later revealed he still has them through his Kenjutsu variation and fatalities that involve the victim's eyes. Or I guess in the Vita port of 9.
No eyes?
I just don't see with them.
Amusingly, he is susceptible to both the Gorgon's gaze and Striker's flashlight, despite being blind. Probably non-canon. MK Legacy was produced in between MK9 and X, and featured Kenshi's origin in its second season. For whatever reason, Kenshi now originates from the year 1199. He saves an old man from bandits who tells him about Sento, and this old man, as far as we know, is not Shang Tsung.
Not Shang Tsung?
The sword has no connection to Kenshi's lineage, its backstory now tying into Outworld instead. Kenshi travels to the cave in which it's housed and fights its guardian, Ermac, being somehow left bleeding from his eyes and leaving with the sword. It all happens off screen, so we have no idea how it happened. He's still alive by the present day and doesn't know about his powers until he fights Ermac in the tournament. Presumably, how he came to be brought to the future or become immortal was supposed to be explained in the sequel movie that never materialised. Wait, is this palette a reference to Legacy of all things? What, stealing Virgil's moves wasn't enough, now you have to reference other things his actor was in? MK Legends Snowblind follows the original version to a shocking degree, right down to the alias Shang Tsung uses, in spite of the setting overall being far different from the typical MK universe. This version of Kenshi is desperate for the sword after being savaged by Tremor. He still wants to be the best, but this desire is painted more sympathetically than in the games, presumably because he's the protagonist and we're supposed to like him enough to see his journey through to the end. Kenshi's involvement is explicitly necessary here, as his blood is needed to open the well, while prior versions really could have had any poor schmuck be Song's victim. He also loses his eyes entirely here, which is presumably a result of the Legend series being so visceral with its violence. And finally, in Mortal 1 Kombat, due to Shang Tsung being a powerless outworlder who only recently acquired sorcery, there is no manipulation from him. Kenshi is a Yakuza, seeking what he knows to be his ancestral sword, with any mention of the non-Japanese ancestry being expunged. He now seeks it for more altruistic reasons, to restore his family's clan to glory, rather than for purely personal gain. Takeda's introduction as his cousin could suggest he was partially motivated by him. He wields a different sword for much of his screen time, including on the covert mission where he outright loses his eyes to a crazed Melina stabbing them out with her sai, with Shang Tsung only being tangentially connected to it all. The now eyeless Kenshi doesn't receive Sento until a little later, by which point his playable chapter is over and we didn't get to use half of his kit. We can use it in the final chapter, however, where Kenshi can get some catharsis by stabbing out the eyes of not one, but two of the Order of Darkness Melinas. He does have his eyes back in his animality, but they're white like in the Midway timeline. Nice attention to detail. And he's still susceptible to Striker's flashlight. Striker's flashlight, the most powerful entity in the MK universe. 3 alternate versions of Kenshi appear in the story's multiverse. The Union of Light version has nothing going for him, but the Order of Darkness version wears sunglasses in place of his blindfold. Considering he serves Titan Shang Tsung, I don't see a reason for Shang to manipulate him how he did in prior timelines, unless he was just feeling especially cruel that day. And while the sunglasses could just be an addition to differentiate this look from how main Kenshi looks in his suit after being blinded, this could be a hint that evil Kenshi isn't actually blind. Maybe he's even faking a disability because he's evil. I was hoping for an invader with the backstory detailed in the opening, but there wasn't one before they started recycling seasons, alas. Chaos Reigns formally introduces the Kenshi from Havoc's timeline. He's just evil and he has no backstory. Maybe he was tricked by Chaos Shang Tsung, maybe he was stabbed in the face by Maze Hunter Melina, maybe he was born like this. And before you ask, no, the myriad blind fusion fighters have no backstories. Finally, MK Onslaught's Kenshi, while based on M1K, has a different backstory. His goal is to travel the multiverse and kill all Shang Tsungs. If this Kenshi has the same backstory as his M1K self, he has no reason to hunt the sorcerer, as he has no culpability in Kenshi's blindness there. Therefore, we can conclude that this Kenshi is only visually and mechanically based on M1K for brand synergy reasons, but his actual history is based on the original. I've always loved how Kenshi's animations are designed to acknowledge his blindness, such as using his ears in Test Your Sight, or how he often faces his ear towards the opponent in his stances with a bit of a tilt of his head to emphasise it.
We take eyes, you learn use ears!
I suspect that future versions that address his backstory will follow the original, or its NetherRealm tweaked version, since the M1K version doesn't have much in the way of character to it. He's just in the wrong place at the wrong time, rather than succumbing to hubris and being humbled. Just another example of M1K's versions of things not being as good as they used to be, am I right? If you liked this video, why not subscribe and support me on Patreon like these fine people here? If not, then your ancestors are going to get mad at you and pluck out your eyeballs. Shame that. Today's recommended video is Mortal Kombat Legends Snowblind Doesn't Suck by Sonic Heart XD.